Hello, hi everyone. Welcome. Let us know in the chat from where you're joining. We just started the session. If you don't know, the academic month started in October 18, and today it's the last session, unfortunately. Every Wednesday since October 18, we invited schools to showcase their work, to showcase how they've implemented CLO to their curriculum. And before I tell you a bit more about the academic month, I would like to introduce myself. So my name is Fernanda. I'm the academic lead for CLO Europe. I joined CLO in 2021 as a 3D designer. My background is in fashion design, and today my work is to support schools when implementing CLO to their curriculum. So from training to licenses, any support needed, please, if you want to start teaching CLO at your school, drop us a message. You can see on the screen a link to our Contact Us page. Yeah, there it is, the link. So feel free to write to us if you have any questions about implementation or if you want to know more about how to teach CLO at your school. Today with me, we have the University of Hannover of Applied Science and Art. I will introduce you to them very soon. Before, I just would like to tell you a bit more about the academic month. So the purpose of the academic month is to give the stage to universities so they can share their projects and share with us how they've implemented CLO to their curriculum. We have so many great stories, and we think that this needs to be shared so we can learn with one another and also inspire those who are still in the implementation process. If you don't know, the academic month started 2 years ago in 2021. We have all sessions recorded, and you can find them in our YouTube channel. There is a playlist with all the recordings from the past editions. You can click here, it will take you there. So soon we will have all the sessions from this year there as well. I see that many people have already joined past sessions, but it's the first time that you are coming. In October 18, we started with Istituto Secoli. They are well known for their pattern making classes, and they shared with us how they've implemented CLO to their pattern making courses. Then we had 3 schools, Design School, Coding, University of Ljubljana, and University of William de Koning Academy. They shared with us how they've applied for Erasmus Plus funding, how they joined forces and successfully managed to get the funding for a 3D fashion education program. So in this case, it was not about implementation, but it was about an important topic that many people also want to know more, how you can apply for Erasmus Plus funding. So they shared all the process with us. Then we had Shape Not Size with the University of Arts Bournemouth. They shared how bespoke avatars can improve inclusivity, fit, and sustainability. This talk was all about body scanning. So if you want to know more about it, I highly recommend to have a look at Shape Not Size. And last week, we had implementation from scratch with the German International University from Cairo. They showcase how they've implemented CLO to their fashion curriculum. And what was really nice about this talk was that they also showcased how they run interdisciplinary projects with the computer and science department. So I also highly recommend having a look at this one. Today, finally, we have Real Meets Digital with Hannover University of Applied Science and Arts. And they will show us how they brought back the garment from a Duke of the 16th century. Can't wait to hear all about it. Here it's an invitation for you if you'd like to showcase your work. Please join us on the academic month of 2024. Just drop us a message. Let us know if you'd like to show the work you've been doing at your school. Without further ado, I would like to invite to the stage the University of Hannover. Sylvia, why don't you start by introducing yourself and the project?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you, Fernanda. So hello, everyone from my side too. We, the Moritz team, welcome you to our presentation, Real Meets Digital. My name, as Fernanda told you, is Sylvia Bossans, and I will guide you through the first part of our presentation. We are also very happy that you're all here and that you are so interested in our Moritz. As you may already know, our Moritz project is an open and participative research project. Therefore, we are happy about every hint that helps us to unravel the mysteries of Moritz. We want to know what you think. That's important to us. And so you're welcome to take notes during the presentation, use the chat and write down questions to discuss them with us afterwards. Please feel invited to do so. Before I go ahead now, one more thing for your information. We will take a short break after about 20 minutes. Now we come to the Duke. Duke Moritz of Saxony-Lauenburg had to leave the ruling to his older brother, Franz II. He himself lived for rent with his mistress and her husband in Buxtehude. However, as insignificant and chronically penniless he may have been for his time, this insignificance is the reason that an extraordinary, unique collection of clothing from his possessions around 1600 has survived the centuries and is preserved in Hannover's museums. Because clothing from this time is not only rarely handed down, above all, it is an absolute stroke of luck that almost the entire wardrobe of a noble gentleman from this time is preserved. In this presentation, we will show you how we bring this valuable 16th century legacy to life with the help of closed 3D. In short, what awaits you now? Here, a short overview after the introduction, where we tell you who we are and where closed 3D comes into play. We have two big topic blocks. The first one is the preservation of cultural heritage. We will introduce you to the research project and how closed 3D contributes to cultural heritage preservation. After that, in the second block, we will take a closer look at the research work in progress and conclude with an interim result where Moritz comes to life, and at the end, an outlook of how the journey goes on. As I told you before, I'm Sylvia Bossans, and I work as a teacher for special tasks in the intersecting fields of costume, fashion, media, and product design. My passion is working with students in the process of developing shapes, especially those made of textile materials. My part in our research project is the project coordination, the 2D digitalization, the development of teaching and learning concepts, especially for the linking of research and teaching, as well as the 3D clothing simulation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christian Gedke, and I work as a lecturer and support areas of 3D animation and visual effects with a focus on sound design. In the project, I was directly or indirectly involved in different tasks, for example, the 3D photogrammetry process, texturing, and so on and so on.
I'm Carsten Behm, and I'm teaching pattern development and CAD technologies for fashion design at Hannover University of Applied Sciences and Arts. And for many years, I have also been working with various 3D simulation programs. And in our Moritz project, I was mainly concerned with the digitization of the analog sewing patterns of Moritz clothing.
My name is Timo Schmidt. I'm a professor for 3D animation and visual effects. I'm teaching various courses from animation to VFX to media design informatics. I worked over 11 years in one of Europe's leading studios for cinema animation films and high-quality media production for theme and amusement parks, which is now called MAC Animation. And here are the other people who complete our core Moritz team. Without Klaus, our electrical engineer and technical support, there would have been no photogrammetry. He developed the light setup of the box for the recording in the museum. Marika is our great support when it comes to simulating Moritz clothes. As a costume designer who also studied at our university, she now works as a CG costume design expert. Maya, she initiated our project. She's also the one who's responsible for our wonderful Moritz website. And as part of the museum team next to Jan Willem, she's responsible for the cultural historical research and processing of the estate. As a freelance, she conceives and coordinates and realizes interdisciplinary projects for culture and science. And Jan Willem, he's the head of the Education and Communication Department at the Historical Museum Hannover. His topics are museum education, participation, digitalization, and outreach. And now let's briefly take a look at some impression of our university where we work. As a regionally anchored and internationally oriented university, the Hannover University of Applied Sciences and Arts offers a broad selection of application-oriented degree programs. Obviously, our faculty is the most beautiful and diverse one. We are working here at the Design and Media department. Our faculty will offer a wide variety of 15 bachelor's degree programs. This list clearly shows how our diverse orientation that we offer with our bachelor degrees. In addition, there are our 4 master degree programs that round off the range of studies. And now some insights of our design basics and some images about our workshops. Some of our impression of our workshops for fashion and costume design. And here you can see our CNC milling machine at work. In the rapid prototyping department, cut and rapid prototype for our BA. And of course, we have the wood workshop and the metal workshop. And as you can see, we both work in analog and digital worlds. In the basement, there's our photo studio, and right next to it, the film studio with green screen and motion capturing possibilities. And lots of digital studios are spread throughout the whole building. Here you can see the preparation of an exhibition in our big atrium and an exhibition on one of our balconies. And theater performances take place on our studio stage, which was a cooperation with the degree program Scenography, Costume, Experimental Design at the Hannover University of Music, Drama and Media. We organize fashion design shows. And to wrap up all these impressions, there's the Motion Cube, our annual festival for film, animation and digital worlds. We also have the International Study Program at our school. Please contact our colleagues if you are interested.
And now back to Close3D and where it comes into play for us. Also, Close3D calls a software, a 3D fashion design software. We actually use it in 3 other design courses apart from fashion design. The first is in media design. We use it for 3D animation. In product design, wherever textile materials are used in the product. And in scenography, costume experimental design for computer-generated costumes. So we have it in different kind of courses. In my basic courses on pattern making, I use Close3D to explain how to get from 2D to 3D form. For me, working with Close3D promotes an understanding of the workflow of how to get from a 2D design idea to a 3D form. I start from a rectangle, which is modeled through modifications until it is optimally adapted to the body shape. You can see that on the left side in the pictures. So, for example, the torso and sleeves. It also serves as a quick check of an idea, as you can see here on the right side. There you can see a conductor's code, and it's the quick check of this conductor's code designed for a performance. And the original costume in the performance you can see at the bottom right. Here are some impressions from our different draft projects. We have short-time drafts, semester draft projects, and cross-disciplinary projects. And of course, bachelor theses are also done with CLO. Corona has really speeded this up. And here an example for BA thesis from Gabriela Ramirez. These are, I would say, the conventional areas where we use CLO 3D. I think you all know them. Now we want to introduce you to a new special application area away from the classical use of CLO 3D, and we call that the preservation of cultural heritage. And the role of CLO 3D in this context. For this, we use the example of our research project. We call it Architects 2.0, or Moritz von Buxtehude. So what is our research project Moritz von Buxtehude all about? First, the question, what do you think? How long do you look at a piece of clothing or another artwork in a museum? There's a poll you can answer, and I would say, please guess. I'll give you a couple of seconds more. So less than 10 seconds, less than a minute, less than 5 minutes, less than 10 minutes. What do you think? How long do you look at a piece of clothing or another artwork in a museum? Okay, I think almost, yes, 43% think that you look less than 5 minutes. And only 4% think that you look less than 10 seconds. The solution is German art magazine Monopol estimates that art viewers spend an average of 4 seconds in front of a painting today. So you have only 4 seconds to catch the interest. You would probably look at Moritz for longer than 4 seconds. 42% of you look longer than, or at least almost 5 minutes. But we asked us, what about all those who have no connection to historical clothing? And what could motivate someone to want to know more, to stay longer, or to pull the cell phone aside, or perhaps use it to get more information? We want to get especially young people into museums. So how can we get young people in particular interested in visiting a museum? Our answer was probably not with a lifeless bust in a display case. And for that, that leads us to one of the goals of our research project, and that is to find new ways to present historical textile objects in a more exciting, interesting way. As you know, textile objects are very delicate and decompose quickly under light and air, and that is why they are rarely exhibited. So how can we preserve them and make them visible at the same time? That's really a difficult question. And that's another goal. The other goal is to create a digital arc that will protect textile cultural assets from oblivion and thus one day take over the testimony of the originals.
Now we would like to introduce our cooperation partner, the Historisches Museum Hannover. The 119 years old museum shows the history of the city from the Middle Ages to present. The collection contains about 500,000 pieces of cultural artifacts and a photo stock of more than 2.4 million pictures. The permanent exhibition is currently being redesigned and therefore closed. Moritz will certainly become part of the permanent exhibition after the reopening. The Museum of History is a goldmine for all who are interested in the history of the state or the city. And for us in particular, the estate would not exist without the Historical Museum Hannover. Here you see the estate of Duke Moritz consisting of 24 objects, like a cape, a rose summer doublet, a red velvet doublet, red velvet breeches, a green silk footerhemd, lined shirt, 2 linen shirts, a ruff, hats, shoes, breastcloths, handkerchiefs. Only a few pieces were displayed in the museum's exhibition. You can see the showcase in the framed picture. How to handle such a complex task? In the first step, we selected 8 objects that we wanted to examine more closely. With our selection, we wanted to be able to dress Moritz from the moment he gets up until he goes to bed. The goal was to digitally secure the information from the real objects. The tasks were divided. The real part was taken by the museum, the digital part by the university. The museum has started with an art historical reappraisal and a textile restorative examination. Not only the provenience research on the museum's collection object was of interest, but also information on details of the clothing, where and how it was made, and in general, who Moritz was. The opening of the archives and the viewing and the analysis of the objects was another step. After the necessary safeguards on the textiles, the textile restorer Carmen Markert manually removed the cut shapes, the patterns. Finally, we had a lot of new information about Moritz and also the 2D patterns in Tyvek for further processing. Since this is an interdisciplinary citizen science project, we asked ourselves how to make this project accessible for the public. From these considerations, the website was created, which makes the individual steps of the research visible. There will also be a book publication on cultural history research on Moritz in the spring of 2024. Here you can see the landing page. From the very beginning, it was clear to us that we would not be able to achieve our goals with the resources of the museum and the university alone. So we have been looking for partners and supporters and are pleased that we are receiving support from Close3D in addition to the VGH Foundation and the Heinz and Nanny Geyer Foundation. Now let's switch from the real world to the digital world to be created by Moritz and Close3D in the context of cultural heritage preservation. Here you see one original linen shirt. And now you can see the simulation of it.
Let's dive into heritage preservation and explain a little more about the process you see in the pictures. After the pieces from the collection of the Historical Museum of Hannover had been restored, we had to determine an order of what we would work on first and what later. Which parts would be best communicate our concern? The green footer hemd and the red doublet with breeches should definitely be there. Now let's take a closer look at the process for the three objects. The data acquisition. We use two methods, photogrammetry and the hand scanner ARTEC-AFA. We wanted to develop a workflow that would suit the situations in different locations. The objects should not have to leave the museum. The goal was a cost-effective mobile setup. In an initial series of tests at the university, we tried out handling of the scanner and the photogrammetry technique on sample garments. Here you can see us in action in our green box at the university. And we go further on. For understanding a short explanation of the term photogrammetry, photogrammetry uses cameras to capture a 3D scene from multiple perspectives. The cameras are moved around the object on different levels. The images are linked using corresponding points that can be seen in multiple overlapping images, each of which can be precisely located. In order to require only one camera, Timo built a kind of tripod car. To define a clear light situation in the museum, we built a light cube with LED stripes on the ceiling. And thanks, Klaus, that you put this light stripe in the cube itself. For a higher accuracy and the later calculation in the software, marker points were attached to the walls. Also for the movement of the tripod, it needed an exact positioning to be seen here as adhesive stripes on the floor. The objects were retrieved from the museum depot, carefully unpacked and then placed on the test dummy.
Wenn ich mich jetzt Fan des Nylonfarbens haute, die können auch Nylonfarben durchziehen, die so bessere Stäbern würden.
Das ist, glaube ich, noch zusätzlich eine super Idee, weil wenn man das jetzt irgendwie mit dem, ja, aber wenn man das jetzt mit dem, also das auch ein bisschen, es braucht ja ein bisschen Volumen sozusagen. Also das ist eine super Idee. Ja.
Now we could start scanning and photographing. That's another video I want to show you. For all selected objects, we needed 2 complete working days. The data had to be checked, the following objects trapped. In the end, we had obtained a lot of data for post-processing. As already mentioned, we took a 2-track approach for the acquisition of the data. First, we scanned with an ARTEC-AFA hand scanner, then we used the photogrammetric method. Why did we do that? We used the handheld scanner to ensure that we at least got a digital version of the objects. This gave us a backup in case the photogrammetry data did not give us the results we wanted. After the data had been acquired, they had to be processed in the next step.
Now let's continue with our digital preparation. The data of the Arctic EVA hand scanner provides a fast and high-resolution 3D geometry results, but unfortunately only low-resolution photo textures. For the further processing, our data of the Arctic EVA hand scanner had to be processed in a complex procedure. In the first step, we need to reduce the 3D model. To convert a high poly mesh, we used a process called retopologization to create a low poly version of it. See the high poly on the left and the low poly version on the right side. In the second step, the creation of a UV layout is necessary. This UV layout corresponds to a pattern in the analog world. You see this pattern on the left, on the right side. Finally, a third step. We need to reproject high-resolution photo images onto our low-resolution geometry. This three-step workflow was too time-consuming, and we rejected this manual process. We decided to use the photogrammetric method because it gives us excellent 3D geometry data and high-resolution photo textures in one step. The Capturing Reality software takes care of all the steps in the process, and it's way faster and highly automated. And here you have the first 3 digital twins of our textile project. First, the linen shirt. So we represent these garments in a turntable, we call it. So you can see it from all sides. So the second is a red doublet. Which is the most impressive one of these 3 objects. And the last object is the green footer hand.
But what else besides turntables should come out in the end? We wanted to have a 3D animation of Moritz as a character in a simulated clothing with detailed textures and an authentic environment. With the photogrammetric data, a clothing simulation is unfortunately not possible. Therefore, we wanted to take a second route to digitally save the information from the textile objects and digitize the 2D patterns that the conservator had taken for further use. We did this using 2 techniques to find out the best process, not only for our museum, but also for others. The first way was to digitize directly with the digiboard into the CAD software Graphis. And the second way was to photograph the pattern together with a reference rectangle. These photos are later rectified and scaled with the PFP software, and the pattern are automatically digitized with Graphis. The difference does not seem to be unimportant. Hardly any museum owns a digiboard, but probably a good camera.
Now we come to the point where we have brought in the students. We have advertised and started interdisciplinary courses at the university to involve our students in the Moritz project. We used Miro boards, you can see an excerpt here, to work in the courses and coordinate the different courses. First of all, we set the goals for the courses. We wanted Moritz to come to life in the form of an animation. We asked us, what did we need for it? Of course, we needed the research of the museum, we need a story, we needed a character, a pattern, the cloth simulation, an environment, the texturing, and last but not least, the animation. The first thing was that we needed a tiny story. A student or students invented a tiny story, and here you can see the resulting 3 shots they invented. And that's an excerpt of the Miro board with first information, what is already available, so what the students can work with. For example, the turntables from the photogrammetry process, then the patterns we digitized, and the information about Moritz from the museum. In order to tell our story properly, we needed at first a Moritz. We needed a body. We determined the correct proportions for the avatar from the measurements of the 2D patterns and the results of former research work. We used the existing patterns as a guide and derived the size and body shape for the creation of the character, the avatar. For the first clothing simulations, we used a CLO 3D standard avatar, whose body proportions we adjusted accordingly. In parallel, an actual Moritz avatar was developed that you can see here in the pictures. And of course, the body needs a head. With the head, we had a bit of trouble. Moritz was a bon vivant and he was vain. One could think, and it was not uncommon at that time, that there are quite a few portraits of this noble gentleman. In fact, there are some of his family members, but not one of himself. Only a preserved coin gives us an impression of his face. You see the coin in the picture top left. On this basis, we first developed sketches and then digital 3D portrait heads with corresponding grooming. So that's, you can see here in the pictures, the way to that. And then we had a Moritz and we needed an environment.
Yes, an environment. Our Moritz needs an authentic environment in which to move. To do this, we researched what houses in the interiors looked like in northern Germany around 1600. For example, we used the picture guide of the Flensburg City Museum. We used paintings with popular lighting moods from this period as an inspiration. And the next step was to build the interior as a 3D environment with such lighting scenes. Not only the chamber, the light, and the avatar are important for the authentic ambience, but also all furniture works of art and home accessories. Unfortunately, the house was destroyed, so we had to reinvent the chamber. In the end, Moritz and his living space had to match. After that, we were able to bring it all together, and the students could now think about Moritz's movement and his path through the room according to their story. We think that's what Moritz's room might have looked like. If you agree with us, fine. But we are not done with our simulation yet, and now comes the cloth.
With our closing simulation, we want to get as close as possible to the historic original. That's why all the details have to be recreated exactly. As an important significance in the clothing simulation is the authenticity of the material and the textures. Again, we took 2 different approaches to develop the textures for the grind lint shirt. In the first approach, we tried to create texture and plasticity using only normal and displacement maps. In our second approach, we combine these texture maps with a padding function in CLO 3D to further enhance the realism. Here you see the results of the first approach. On the left side, you see the original material. This is a small stripe of the photograph on the left side. The other picture represents the digital twins. the texture maps of the fabric with the yellow seams. In this approach, we have only one material layer. The quilting and plasticity comes afterwards via the texture. Here you can see the normal and displacement maps of the silk of the outer fabric on the left and the flannel of the linen fabric on the footer hem on the right, and below how it would look like on an object. As you can see, it does not yet reflect the real plasticity of the original material. Therefore, our second approach, we combine the textures with a second layer of fabric and use the fill and padding feature of CLO3D to increase the plasticity. A close-up look inside CLO3D, how we combine the two. This is the result with all the texture map in combination with the padding. We think it looks quite real already. On the lower right side, you see the renderings of the arm. And this is a rendered photo hemp in a light setup. There are a lot of scene parameters to change the effect of the result. The result of our first approach, here a turntable with uniform neutral lighting setup.
Here's a green footer hemp with padding.
So that's the result with the padding, with the two layers.
Now briefly an insight into the development of the red velvet for doublé and hairpauke. Here students started with sketches based on the original patterns as digital drawings. The pattern repeat was also developed so that the material could be used for the pattern pieces in CLO3D. Several iterations were necessary to create the desired effects. All textile structures, quilting, embroidery, seam structures, ribbons and trimmings were prepared to match the physical properties on the fabric, such as drape, weight, elasticity, and reflections. On the left, you can see the original ribbon on the red doublé. On the right side, the digital version. Now we were prepared to merge all components in CLO3D. And here, the digital ribbon on the top of the digital fabric. And at the end, the position on the finished garment.
And let's take another step back because we haven't explained yet how the pattern pieces come into CLO3D. So we go back to that. The digitized analog patterns were post-processed in Graphis and then converted to an exchange format. We choose DXF AMA and imported them as pattern pieces into CLO3D. We then chose a default material, changed its color, as you can see on the left side, sewed the pieces then together and simulated them on the proxy avatar. So you can see it's still the proxy avatar and not the Moritz avatar. Before we went any further, we changed the material color back to white, as this made the details easier to see for the rest of the process. The historical patterns turned out to be quite complex and time-consuming, far more so than modern pants and shirts. In the next step, we replaced the proxy avatar with the modeled Moritz avatar. Still working with the default material, we added the positions of the trimmings, such as ribbons and others. The next challenge was to put the breeches on. A challenge because in reality the breeches sit above the waistline and are attached to the doublet using hooks. You can see that in the middle in the picture. This would have been too complicated for the simulation. Therefore, we decided to construct a waistband and tag it to the avatar at the exact position above the waist. Finally, that you can see on the right side, of efforts were rewarded with the first surprising clothing simulation images on the Moritz avatar. We know, when you see this here, the fit of the garment is not quite perfect yet, and the drape of the fabric is not very velvety, it's too soft and too flowing still, and textures and details are missing, but nevertheless, we were thrilled. It's our first virtual Moritz. Simply using a default material of red velvet slowly brought us closer to the desired look. By changing the properties of the default velvet material from Clo3D, we have tried to gradually approximate the actual properties of the original velvet. And we are still not completely satisfied. But for the time being, the results seemed good enough for us to continue working with it. Further trimmings, such as the bows, were added. And in the next step, the ribbons can finally be attached to the previously marked positions. And then, of course, Moritz needed a neck ruff. This is the first attempt, and we haven't reached the end here either. For our first animation, we left out the ruff and concentrated on the doublet and the hair pauke. And here the finished Moritz. What's still missing is the texture, the pomegranate pattern. And here we got it. Timo, I think it's your turn again.
Okay. First, we have a play blast that shows the 3D visualization of the storyboard. The students captured mocap data to determine the motion sequence for the animation. Oh yes, he's already been given a rig, so he can move at all. So this is a preview of the final animation to check if the animation is correct, the clothes are moving. You get a feel for the environment. Okay, and then finally it came, the big moment when everything fell into place. Rendering was done, a little bit of compositing. So this is our first attempt at the realization, and we know there's still a lot of room for improvement. But here you can see it in motion.
We have not reached the end yet of our journey. Not all 8 objects have been fully processed yet. We also want to work on the approach of a fully automated 3D scanner and material scanner, the linking of research and teaching, using Clo3D as a tool in the preservation of cultural heritage, a virtual Moritz in the permanent exhibition at the Historical Museum, on the analog reproduction of the estate for use in museum education and reenactment. Part of our project was to develop a low-cost, fully automated scanner to speed up the library's process of photogrammetry that we had originally envisioned. After initial sketches, we tried to build a model. Unfortunately, Corona brought our efforts to an abrupt end. Therefore, a working model is still in progress. As you can imagine, carrying out such a project is not easy, as the semesters are short and the composition of the people involved changes very, very quickly. So we are still looking for people with the necessary skills. And now I want to show you a video of the scanner we try to build. This is an animation that shows you the process, but I think it's in the future, not now. Okay. We thought big and worked out building a material scanner in parallel. In future, this will be available to all design courses in our faculty's materials library. All scans with the resulting maps will be available to users in a digital library.
And now, almost at the end, we want to say thank you. At first, a big, big thank you to our students and former students, without whom what we have just shown you would not have been possible. So this is in a random order. There are Peter Bent, Mostafa Farag, Annette Fischer, Lea Hildebrand, Kimberly Hoffmann, Maluna Hook, Nikola Jovic, Marcel Klipke, Long Luong, Lena Müller, Leonie Pormann, Julian Reichelt, Slava Shevtsov, Viktor Stankovic, Friederike Thun, Rosalie Beladik, Jan Müller, Gabriela Carolina Ramirez, Alexander Kuzminik und Endrik Marker. A big, big thank you to all. You were really great. And there are some other important supporters in the Moritz team. That is Kam, our textile restorator, Florian and Kevin, the shop managers, workshop managers of our wood and metal workshop, and Hannah Niemeyer, the workshop manager of our materials workshop. They are very important also for our project. Thanks to you all. And that's the end. Thank you all for your attention. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to share them with us now.
I would say that me and the audience, we are all actually thanking you all for sharing this project with us. It's so amazing. Yeah, thank you for being like so humble and so professional. You can see that you documented all the steps, and this is so important for us to learn how it was done. It was an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. We have many questions from the audience. Just before we start, one thing that I wanted to know better is, was this part of the curriculum, or did you develop this project as an elective so students could apply, the ones who wanted to participate on the project? More in the educational side, how was it?
It's part of the curriculum, but the goal for us was to combine the various bachelor degree courses from the fashion design and the costume design and the media design. So each group of students bring a little bit of knowledge, and we, the lecturers, try to orchestrate them.
Yes, I imagine originally it started. Sorry, Sylvia. I was just saying, I imagine it's not an easy task, but it's many people involved.
Yes, there are many people involved, and we originally started it as a research project, and we then came with the students, with the courses into this research, or combined the research project with the curriculum. And that was, I think that's a good way to do that. So research work gets more interesting, and it's also something everyone can take part.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Nice. I will jump to the questions that we have from the audience because there are many of them. Why did you do both processes of scanning the garment and then doing also in CLO? I would say it's like to have a guidance of how the garments would be, but I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, you saw the turntables of the photogrammetry, and this is, you can call it the ground truth. So it's a one-to-one representation of the original analog world in a computer. So the other side from the garments and the patterns and via CLO 3D, you have to recreate this kind of model.
And I think you are right. We needed it as a guidance. That's one part. And another part is, of course, that we wanted to make them available for researchers without fetching them from the depot of the museum. So they could perhaps research on the digital twin.
Yeah. And then will you do other projects for the museum? Julia is asking. Maybe other historical garments?
Yes, we would like to. We would like to finish the 8 objects. We haven't finished them yet. And we want to be part of the permanent exhibition of the Moritz exhibition in the museum. So we will work together with the museum on other ways of presenting historical objects.
Yes, but from
in the beginning we had a dream that. In the beginning, we had a dream that the digital Moritz can bring the audience or take the audience through the exhibition, and the digital Moritz will be the guide in the exhibition. And we are talking with the people from the museum about this. And when the exhibition will start again, we will see what we can do in this way.
Fantastic. Then, you know, other places where 3D digitalization is used for patrimonial values? Loic is asking. So maybe other universities or other researchers that are using 3D for patrimonial values?
I don't know.
We have to think about this. We have to think about it.
Yeah, I've been hearing quite often. There is also like another researcher that is here present as well. I think this is a topic that is coming up, and that we will be seeing. Yeah, Victoria. Yes, Victoria already connected her to Hannover University. There was also another university from Switzerland. So if you are working also with other historical garments, let us know, because we always like to match the researchers and people that are working with this. Let us know, and it will be a pleasure to match everyone. 2 last questions, I promise. Another one from Ina, sorry. So do you plan to integrate your workflows with other projects and or research infrastructures on national and international level?
I think we haven't thought so big so far, but I think that's it's really interesting to think about it. Yes, would be great.
In the moment, we have no plan, but we will think over this if it is possible in the future, because we have to teach our students in the basic courses, and then we need time for connections to other national, international schools and museums and so.
I think the main problem is that we are a University of Applied Sciences and Arts and not a university. So the education has a much bigger importance for us. So first comes the education of our students, and then comes all the research projects on top of it. It's a time-consuming step.
It is. And the last one, then we will let you go and have a good rest after this amazing presentation from Anna. So as CLO is so vast, but we all learn at first how to bring patterns to life. I would like to ask which areas are lacking development that new designers and students would be more than welcome to dive in order to help the industry. I think this is a really great question. I would love to hear also like from Sylvia, that I know you work directly with CLO, and also Karsten. This project already gives us a hint, right? We can use CLO for bringing back historical garments and digitizing so many archives. So we have so much history, right? In museums, in garments that are so important.
Yes.
Yeah. The project that you just presented, it's a good example on how we can use CLO.
The first step could be that we bring the young people closer to the history, and so that they will learn about the history, so they are prepared to manage the present, and the work in the industry. And sometimes it's good to look at former shapes, because in the moment we have even the same shapes in all collections, and sometimes it's necessary to have a new kick for this, and it's better to look in the very, very past and learn something about the shapes and the technology. And in the beginning, we had one project where the fashion students worked the linen shirt you have seen there with a traditional pattern, and they modified it and brought it in their collections, in their daily collections. And I think that could be a way to connect the young people with the heritage, and to go in the libraries, in the museums yourself, and make research there for their own projects, and not only in the internet.
No, I agree 100%. I can't wait to see history of fashion classes, for example, done with 3D. Because at my time, when I was a fashion student, I learned history of fashion in books, printed books, and sometimes they were copy of printed books. So it was even worse, even harder to see the garment. And you would guess the construction of the pattern. But like with this project, for example, I'm sure you learned so much about pattern making. It's the type of garment that nowadays we don't have. So I think it's going to be so rich for the future generation to learn about, in the course of fashion design, how these patterns were built, and also to see it maybe in a one-to-one, right, size, and not in a printed book. So I think it's going to be like super insightful and rich, and I can't wait for fashion school to have history of fashion classes with 3D.
Yes, and also for the area of costume design, I think it gets very interesting to work with CLO 3D. So you have a first impression. I showed that at the beginning in the basic courses. So as a check up for an idea I want to have on the stage, and I think that's a great possibility with CLO 3D to have a first impression. So you can say that this works not. I think that's also for costume design. It's a very, very valuable tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and later for augmented reality.
And
Yeah,
augmented reality
to
too,
mix
yeah.
this and maybe for the costume designers and for the show business, and so it may be interesting for the future.
And also for museum exhibitions, I think that could bring the younger generation to go into the museum and visit a museum and spend a bit more time than 4 seconds in front of something.
Yeah, yes, not 100%. I want to thank you all again for sharing the project, for giving your time to us to talk about it. It's so important. Everyone learns so much with this experience. And please share with us also the future projects that you develop. Yeah. It would be so nice to hear about it. If they want to reach out to you, how they can contact you?
Moritz website?
Moritz website, perhaps?
I've already added the Moritz website to the chat. I can add
That's
it
great.
again. I have it here. Yeah, so
Yeah, that's
thank you
great.
again. Yeah, have a nice evening, everyone.
Thank you very
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.